lot of people here is like, oh, you're the guy that sold that Kona to some guy in Guatemala. I'm like, guilty as charged. Welcome to another episode of Out of Spec Dave, where today I've got a super incredible interview with Edgar Nanne. We met over the most bizarre circumstances. I had bought back in April of 2019 a Hyundai Kona EV. And I thought at the time that the Kona EV, the SEL version, had the adaptive cruise control. And I really wanted that feature to be on the car. And then I found out that it didn't have it. So I put the car up on eBay, and you're not going to believe who I got a call from. So let's get into it, folks. This is going to be a good one. Welcome, Edgar, to this episode of Out of Spec Dave, where it's so great to see you after, I think it's been a few years that we've actually spoken. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Dave. Pleasure to be here.
Let me tell the story here, because this is one that my wife Kathy and we joke about all the time, right? So, I buy this Hyundai Kona. It was a beautiful car, loved it, but I really wanted the fancy one, the Limited. And so I had it for about a week, maybe two at most. And I decided to put it up for sale and see if I could get someone to buy it. And so I remember I put it on eBay, and I was out to dinner with my wife at John's Pizza here in Stamford, Connecticut. And we sat down, and, my wife has this rule, which I sort of abide by, which is no cell phones at dinner, right? Put them down. So all of a sudden, my cell phone rings, and I see that there's somebody calling me from Guatemala. And I'm like, Guatemala, this, like my whole life, it's funny. I've always said, maybe this is the phone call, right? What is the phone? Maybe it's the phone call, back when you had the big cell phone. Maybe this is the phone call that's going to make me retire early. I don't know. So I look at the phone, Kathy's like, don't answer it. Don't answer it. And I'm like, I got to answer it. It's from Guatemala. Who could that be? And so sure enough, I pick up the phone. She got pissed at me, and it was you. And I was very surprised to hear someone speaking in like perfectly good English. And do you remember when we spoke the first time? and so you introduced yourself, and you said that you had seen the car on eBay. And as I got to talking to you, I was like, this guy is fascinating. You explained to me that you had gotten your PhD at Columbia, and tell me just a little bit about yourself and your history as to, because you went to school here in New York, but you live in Guatemala, right? So tell me about that.
That's correct. I was born and raised in Guatemala. I did all of my early schooling here until I graduated from high school. And I actually started college in Guatemala, but then I had an opportunity to transfer to Fordham University in New York. I had a full scholarship at Fordham. In fact, that was a game changer. When you told me you went to Fordham Business School,
yes.
It broke the ice.
Right.
I was not talking to someone who I couldn't put a face to on the other side of the phone.
Right. I was at the Lincoln Center campus at nights doing my MBA.
And so I got a degree in chemistry at Fordham. And then I started doing a master's at Columbia for chemical engineering. And once there, things lined up. And I ended up doing a PhD in chemical engineering. And I did really cool stuff there. So overall, I lived in New York for almost 10 years. It seems to be excessive in time, but many things happen in between. So pretty much all the from 2001 to 2010, I was in New York.
Right. But and weren't you like a world-class runner, or I mean, you were really up there. When I'm like, I got to Google this guy. Is this for real? What is? And I remember seeing articles written about you. Am I remembering correctly?
It's rowing, not running.
Rowing. Okay, yeah, rowing. That's right. Yeah.
I got a scholarship for rowing at Fordham, which is very rare because most of the athletic scholarships for men in the U.S. college system are either for football, basketball, and that's it. Very few of the others are left over for the men. For women, because of Title IX, There are a lot of other opportunities, but I didn't realize how lucky I was until I was there, because there are not that many opportunities for student athletes in the. I mean, they might help with admissions in a big way, but getting
Mhm.
actual money for tuition through sports for men, unless you're a football player or a basketball player, the options are very limited. And that's
Right.
another video, but that's what
Yeah.
happened.
You were interested in this, and you'd already gone back to, you were living in Guatemala, I think, in your family business. Tell me, what is the business that you guys are in down in Guatemala? And are you living in Guatemala City? Is that where you are?
Yeah, we're in
Guatemala
Guatemala
City.
right now. We have several businesses, but the one I'm working at right now is a flavor. It's a flavor company. We
Really?
manufacture flavors for the pharmaceutical industry, for bakery, for beverage, for animal feed, and we pretty much cover a lot of the Central American market.
One of my really good friends is a very senior executive at IFF,
Okay.
International, fragrances and
In fact,
flavorings or whatever.
facility. They had a facility in Guatemala,
Did they?
and
Yeah.
in a very uh, abrupt way, which was a huge blessing for us, because we had a rush of new customers because of the way they handled it. They didn't even try to sell their local operations. They, one day to the next, they said, "We're out of here," gave their customers 2 weeks notice, and that was
Wow.
it. So this goes into why I had an interest in electric vehicles.
Yeah.
And actually, it goes back to my time in New York. One of the reasons I spent such a long time doing my PhD is because some of the people with whom I was doing the PhD, I don't want to use my classmates, because when you're in grad school, unless you're getting a degree like yours, you really don't have classmates per se. We started a company to make biodiesel in Pennsylvania.
Mm.
And that worked well for a couple of years until the financial crisis came along, and it just we had to shut down. We went out. But when I was back here, I said, okay, I'm going to do some biodiesel just for fun. And then I noticed that I was having trouble dealing with the oil sources that I could access here. And what I ended up doing is I hooked up with this German guy who had worked for a company that sold kits to convert diesel engines to run on straight vegetable oil. So I converted all the delivery trucks in our companies down here to run and use vegetable oil in it. And I converted an old Mercedes I had to run on old vegetable oil. So renewable energy thing, it didn't start with the electric car. And so that's why you probably remembered about the truck.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that does make sense. That's why I remember that. Yeah.
Delivery fleet we have in-house. Up to this day, I have it running with used vegetable oil, and it works fairly well. There are some challenges here and there that I think they deserve a video to itself. But
yeah, well, just so you know, I was talking to Kyle today, and I told him, I said, "Guess who I'm gonna be talking to tonight?" And he was like, "I don't know." And I told him you, and he goes, "I still need to get down there and visit that guy."
I mean, now when we had planned it, the pandemic was just came in, and that brought in a whole set of challenges. But now, definitely be done.
What got you interested in, looking on eBay for a Hyundai Kona? Tell me that journey.
So this is what happened. It's probably a very different story from most of the EV owners out there in the world. In this facility where I'm sitting right now, we installed a very robust photovoltaic solar panels, and it had been working for they'll be 10 years old this year, more actually. And it got to a point, and we were having we were producing more energy that we were actually consuming. And I asked my dad, listen, we have to find what to do with this excess energy that we're producing right now. And I asked him, wouldn't you want an electric car? I mean, they're starting to become mainstream. Maybe not locally, but I mean, you can afford to play it and risk it having a car. And he was like, nah, But then I realized that I was getting to a stage where I needed a new car. I hadn't bought a new car ever. So I said, okay, well, I'm the one that really needs a new car. I'm driving these old hoopties.
So I have the honor of selling you your first new car.
I still consider it a new car because it only had.
Well, it was only a week old when I sold it to you.
It was pretty much new.
Yeah.
So that's how I said, okay, I need a car. Me and my wife, we need a reliable car. Why not make it an EV? We really don't drive long distances. So I really started doing my due diligence. So, okay, if I'm going to get an EV and I don't have the infrastructure, when I mean infrastructure, is not just the charging infrastructure, but the dealerships, the support, because we were actually taking a risk. Just to make a parenthesis, this was 3 or 4 years ago. Now you're starting to see a lot of EVs on the road. My neighbor, going back to a question you asked me before we started recording, my neighbor has an Audi e-tron.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and I like my cars better, by the way, which are less luxurious and cost probably a third or because the range is bigger.
They are magically efficient for a shared platform car.
I started doing my due diligence, and I really thought about that because where the market is evolving is into fast charging. But fast charging doesn't mean anything if you don't have the fast chargers. I started to see chargers everywhere, but like at shopping centers, at restaurants, at truck stops, but they're level 2 chargers.
They're AC. They're not DCs. Right?
They're not DC. So what I thought to myself is, since the market is evolving, that means that's where it's evolving too, because that is the challenge that is preventing people from mass adoption. But since I'm not going to have that anyway, that means that cars that don't have fast charging, vehicles that don't have the fast charging actually start automatically depreciating. So I'm going to take advantage of this because I'm not going to use it anyway. So I started a lot of due diligence. I didn't want a Tesla because Tesla is still at what I like to call the cocky stage. I mean, they have such high demand that they can afford to be, I don't want to use the word jerks, but so that they won't sell you a headlight if you break it, because their policy is for you to bring it over to a service center. And that obviously wouldn't work at a place where you don't have service centers.
Right.
That being said, I've seen a lot of Teslas on the road. People like me. In fact, a customer at my wife's business, my wife is also a foreigner in Guatemala. She's from Brazil. I brought it up because I'm also familiar in how this industry is starting to develop in Sao Paulo, which is not a whole other video. But a customer of hers came along in a Model 3, and I asked him, so how'd you get it? And I thought, similar story as me, like, well, I always thought I was not that, I didn't have the conviction of buying an electric vehicle, but I told someone that I knew that bought vehicles at auction, if that anything came along that seemed half decent, and I would make an offer, and if it happened. If it happens, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. And this came along and it worked. It just had a bump in one of the side doors. We fixed it locally, and here it is, and it's worked so far so good. But I've seen Model S's, I've seen Model X's, I've yet to see a Model Y. The dealers that have electric vehicles right now are Porsche with the Taycan, and Audi with, and then a series of Chinese manufacturers that you don't have in the States. They're cheap. I mean, the American market has always been, and this is not a new thing. I mean, forever, has higher demand and quality. And for example, the old Mercedes is from the 80s. The models that were sold in the U.S. were always better than the one. Better equipped.
Fancy ones with the bigger engines and leather interior.
All of them had AC. All of them had electric windows. While the same models that you would find in Europe were much plainer. Like they were. So the American market has always been the electric. Like the performance of the Kona, it's outstanding. And anybody if you talk to any American that thinks of EVs, everybody says, "Oh, yeah, they're fast. They have amazing torque." But the ones you are on the market here, the Chinese ones, are not the case, and that doesn't make them bad. It's just that it's a less demanding market.
So you're doing your due diligence, and so you landed on the Kona as the model that you really wanted at that point in time. Okay.
It was the one that had the best reviews in all, like, and one thing that it's going to make it's going to make you laugh because it doesn't make any sense for anybody that buys an EV, is that I actually saw it as a plus that it was built on a
shared platform.
A shared platform. Because that meant parts were going to be easily available.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Right? Imagine if I bought a Polestar or a Lucid or something.
Right. But, that's a good point. So, like, if your side view mirror breaks on your Kona EV, guess what? It's the same as it is on the gas car, right? Or yeah. So, okay. Well, that I think was a very logical choice. So now you go and you look for the car. And how long did you look before you found mine?
Not that much. I mean, I was scanning through eBay, brand new, and I knew exactly what you were doing. That you knew how to play the tax rebate system.
Oh, dude. No, listen. Listen, Edgar. I made a mistake. I wanted the limited, so I flipped the car, and it was so funny. There's a lot of people here is like, "Oh, you're the guy that sold that Kona to some guy in Guatemala." I'm like, guilty as charged. Yeah, that's me. I honestly, when I bought that car, I thought I was going to keep it. I was really upset at myself that I did not do my due diligence. That I really wanted adaptive cruise control. That was the thing, and the SEL just didn't have it, and I felt I was a little embarrassed about that because I like having that feature in the car. What I will say is the transaction, it was just a pleasure dealing with you, and you were so super patient because I did have a loan on that car, and if you'll remember, it took. I think you waited 3 months.
Something like that, yeah.
Something like 3 months, and you stuck with me the whole time.
But what was it too, right?
I needed the title, and in order to get the title, I had to have. Well, I paid off the loan, which was something I had to do, but it took the bank so long because DMV didn't even issue the title for at least a month and a half after. Nobody buys a car and wants to sell it in a week, right? Who does that? And so me, I guess. So anyway, we kind of worked together to figure out what would be the best way to export the car. And Kyle got involved, and I remember that he drove the car. Was it down to Wilmington, Delaware, or something like that?
That was where the shipping. By the way, shipping was unbelievably cheap. I paid like $1,000 to ship it to Guatemala. Just taking it across the country in the U.S. was putting on a platform, even uncovered, must be a lot more than that.
And when the car. How long do you remember how long it took from when it got on the ship and then and then till you got the car? How long was that process?
It was a couple of weeks. I mean, my challenge, the shipping was not. I mean, there's a whole industry, not only to Guatemala but all through the Americas, of bringing the used cars the Americans don't want.
Right.
Whether they are just plain out used out or the auction cars from the insurance from Copart and one of those websites. I can share with you the challenges we had here because even though things have changed drastically over the last 3 years, and we'll get to that, I was one of the first icebreakers. And for example, had in the registration at customs, because customs has to issue the paperwork so that the car actually has to be registered with the equivalent of the DMV here.
Right.
But the moron at the DMV wouldn't know. I mean, at the registration of all vehicles has a motor size or the cylinder size. So if it's a 5.7, and he wouldn't know what to put there, and they held me back for getting my registration for a long time because the guy that was in charge of my case thought that it should be empty instead of having 00. So he had me put the car on hold until he asked for the system for the DMV to change that so that he could actually put hyphens or 00 or empty. I don't know. But actually, I saw in that interim, I went to a shopping center that actually had a small bus that moved, that they put into place to get people from a local office center to the shopping center, which was like 5 blocks away, to have lunch there. So one of the services to motivate people to go have lunch at the strip. And it was an electric bus. It actually looked just like a big golf cart. It was not a vehicle you would be carrying on a freeway, right? It was an EV. It was like an 8-passenger minibus. So I came up to it and I asked him, and he had license plates and registration. So I asked him, listen, can I check out your registration just to see? And he had 00. So I was just with a moron that. So I had to wait a couple of like a good 4 weeks for that to happen. I finally got my license plates, and the other challenge I had was that I couldn't get an insurance company to insure the car. The uncle of a friend of mine from high school, he had a Tesla, and this friend of mine had told me, listen, he had mentioned that his uncle had a Tesla, and so I called him up and listened, could you ask your uncle how he got the car insured? He was extremely nice. He invited me to his house. He had, in fact, car collection. He had I had like 4 Beetles, from different generations, and Corvettes from the ones that still had the engine in the back, like from the 60s. And he had the Tesla there, and it was a long range, a Model 3.
Oh, the Corvairs?
Corvairs. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Finally, I did some lobbying because we have insurance with our companies and stuff. Right. And finally, I got them to insure the car.
That's so, man, you are a pioneer. My goodness.
Yeah, I didn't have an excessive premium or anything. It was just, in terms of taxes, they took the face value of the invoice for the value of the car because they didn't have any other way to blue book value per se, but it wasn't fair. And there were already incentives for hybrids, which the way the tax system works here is you just pay a VAT, for any car, whether it's imported or not, for the invoice value or for the Kelly Blue Book value if it's a vehicle the invoice has it. But they took the invoice. They didn't give me any trouble. And then you pay what they call the equivalent, what they call the first registration tax. At the end of last year, not the end, but September. I don't know if it was September or October. A law was passed that EVs will pay. They will pay no VAT. So VAT, value-added tax, it's a tax that you find in Europe, but not in here. And they will pay no registration tax, and they will not pay no annual, because vehicles here also pay a registration fee every year. Vehicles will not pay that for.
That's got to be spurring sales and motivating.
Sure. I think that's what needed.
20% VAT, and you can avoid that altogether by buying an EV.
The small Nissan delivery van that is not available in the U.S. He bought it in Spain, and they also own utility companies, not utility companies, but they have their own hydro systems, so they just use the utility infrastructure to have their own power. So they had the whole package. They produce their own power. They had their fleet, and they had their pharmaceutical company. And because they were delivering high value items with low weight, like pharmaceuticals, they did the whole thing. And they are the ones that now have a dealership for this company called Maxus.
I see. Okay.
It's a Chinese, I think it's a British brand, Chinese manufactured. And now you can start seeing the vans all over the place, like DHL, the FedEx competition,
sure.
Then now they are owned by Deutsche Post, the German mail, pretty much. And by mandate, they had to have a percentage of vehicles that are clean energy vehicles. And now every time they come over, they're driving one of those electric vans. I'm pretty sure in terms of quality, they will never match the Toyotas. They're pretty much compliance vehicles. So that's what's going on down here. And every time you see more and more electric vehicles, the tax, I never got to take advantage of that tax structure. In fact, what's one of the only advantages I see of sending the Kona, well, eventually I will have to do it. And I knew that I was playing with a little bit of risk of sort of something like this happening, because EVs, even in the United States, are still fairly new, right?
Yeah, I mean, and remember, Edgar, that Kona back then was only being sold, I think, in 8 states in the United
Right.
States.
It was a compliant
So,
vehicle.
that was a hot car back in the day, because not a lot of dealerships back then would actually sell a car to someone who was out of state. So if there was one that was used, it was like, it's going to go fast. And so I thought for sure some guy in Iowa or Nebraska was going to buy it. No, not somebody from Guatemala. So, now, so how has the car been from a reliability standpoint? Forget about the battery for a second, but and how many miles have you put on the car since you got it?
Not that many. By the way, something I haven't mentioned is that I got another EV.
You do? Oh.
I did. I bought a Nero.
Wait, you didn't buy it from me? What
No.
I thought it was your,
Well, actually, I did mention it because when you posted a video with the VW ID4,
yeah,
I joked around. I sent you a message, a WhatsApp, asking like, I should have bought it, right? I don't know if you remember it, but no, I actually bought a Nero, and the reason I bought a Nero is because it seemed to have all the advantages of the Kona, which I loved, but with a good battery.
So overall, though, have you had any issues with the car since you've owned it, other than the battery awareness?
The only thing that happened was that the 12-volt battery died once at a place where
Oh, classic.
And I mean, we were at a very rural setting, and I didn't have any cables. So the car, and I found that sort of dumb. I mean, the battery had run down. So this is what happened. We were packing to leave. We had rented out a cabin in the forest, like on the mountains. And we were about to leave, so we had the doors open because we were packing, and the battery was on its last legs. You really don't think about it there, because you don't start the vehicle,
right?
But when we closed the door, and because the doors were open, the interior lights, even though they are LED, were on, but they battery down to a certain level in which the vehicle wouldn't start. And I'm like, oh man,
what are we going to do to get that battery replaced? Like, what's the process here?
So this is what's going to happen. I want to tell a little bit of how Hyundai handled it. So
okay,
I want to say it was good, and I want to say it was bad. So the first thing is I wrote to Hyundai. Hyundai had the VIN number as an American car, so it was sent to an American net center, and they said, go to your dealer. And I said, listen, this is what's going on. I didn't buy the car at the dealer, so I don't want to put more responsibility on the dealer other than the responsibility of handling the brand. I don't want to put up so much heat on that. So what do you need the dealer for? Maybe I say, okay, I'll take the car to the dealer. And I knew someone that worked at Hyundai here. And I told him, and he said, well, bring it over and we'll see. I thought that Hyundai USA wanted me to just bring it to the dealer so the dealer could verify that the state and the mileage in which the vehicle was at. Not that they were going to be able to do anything about it, because the state here doesn't even sell hybrid cars. And I asked them, so what's the deal? There is a market for hybrid cars and electric cars, and it's not up to us. It's up to Hyundai corporate in Korea. It's not our choice. I mean, they are the ones that determine what models are available for our market. This is a funny story. So I actually know the owner of the dealership, the Hyundai dealership. This an acquaintance of mine. He's the godfather of sailing in Guatemala, and I also did some sailing back in my day, so I would consider him my friend. So I send him a message, and I tell him, listen, I'm in a situation because my electric Hyundai has a recall, and they're saying for me to bring the car to the dealer, the local dealer, and the local dealer says not to take it. I don't want to get you into trouble. And it was not a threat. It was actually a comment to make sure that the dealer is not left in a bad place.
Right.
A threat. And he got extremely pissed off at me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, dude, I had to call him. It's not a threat. I just want to be sure. First, I have the emails to prove that I've been asking to get the not bring the dealer in because I didn't buy the car there. And second, they are the ones that are pushing me to the dealer. And I have both emails, like emails showing the two things. And so he apologized and he said,
yeah,
sorry.
Well, that's good. Yeah, I mean, it's not your typical request, though, Edgar.
Yeah,
come on. Yeah.
Yeah, one of those things. Listen, I don't want to mess you up because I am aware that I didn't send you business, but I'm getting the instructions from Korea to bring the car to you. Right. What do you need me to do? So finally, I do get a call from the dealer, and the local dealer, and they say, we'll take your car, we'll give it a Kelley Blue Book value, and we'll give you credit for any of the models here. And I'm like, that won't fly. I'm not cool with that. And I asked them, what are you going to do with the car? And they said, we're going to destroy it. I'm like, are you nuts? And this is this is at the peak of the microchip shortage.
Okay.
So there was a shortage of cars worldwide. And I'm like, for me, it made no sense. And I don't want to feel attached to the vehicle. But it really broke my heart when they told me that we're going to.
Yeah. After everything you've been through, you don't want
exactly.
Yeah.
So I said, let me think about it. I never called them back. They called me a couple of months later, and I told them the car's on their way to the U.S. It wasn't.
Right.
I was doing all the paperwork, but then the shipping was just super expensive. But that's where Hyundai was at. And the reason I want to bring it back to the U.S. is I think I will have a lot more leverage there. What I'll do, the way I would do it is I'll ship to Florida, have someone there. They said, yeah, you can send the car to we'll take the ownership and we'll take it to the dealer and really nag them. Kia is now bringing in hybrid vehicles, which means that they have facilities that work with batteries. Had the problem been with Kia, I'm pretty sure now they could handle the battery.
Maybe if you wait 6 more months, maybe Hyundai will do it too, and then they will service it.
Just change hands. It's no longer.
Yeah, but Edgar, think about the video we can make if you have this thing shipped from Guatemala to Florida, and it's going to go viral. This video, everybody's going to want to watch this.
Well, there used to be an industry that competed with the containers that drove vehicles from the U.S. like crash vehicles from the auctions to Central America, Mexico and Central America. And they came back empty. So I started looking with them like, listen.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I mean, sure. Why not?
But that's
a good idea.
They're not operating anymore. The reason being is that there's so many shipping. There are a lot of containers available from the U.S. south because they go back packed with fruit. I don't know if Chiquita and Dole, that used to be the United Fruit Company, and they go back filled with bananas from the Americas. So they are the ones that actually sell the space in their containers at an extremely cheap rate, and that's why you have contracts.
Right.
You can get a car from Delaware to Guatemala City for $1,000. Shipping the car back to the U.S. is not nearly as cheap.
Yeah. Right. Because now you've got a lot more traffic coming back this way.
Yeah. Now that being said, I should be more pushy. Oh, there was another option that we explored with Hyundai because the Kona is offered in Costa Rica. Costa Rica is a country that has achieved like a very high percentage of its grid is from renewable source, like wind, hydropower. So from renewable. It was a move for Hyundai just to sell the Kona there because it's Costa Rica, because it has such a good green image. So I called them up. Listen, why wouldn't you cover the recall there? And it's like, we don't take imported vehicles. And I'm like, but it's
You know, Edgar, as I hear this, I'm sort of getting scared because I hope Kyle doesn't watch this video. And the reason I say that is because I know he's going to say, "Dad, I have an idea. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to go down to Guatemala
Driving
and I'm going to drive it. I'm going to drive it back. Right? Could you imagine? I mean, like, and he's nuts enough to do it.
Well, I bet.
I don't know how crazy that is, but like, you know, what is the charging infrastructure like from Guatemala through Mexico into whether it's Arizona or Texas or California? I don't even know. I have no idea. Nor does he. But I just hope he doesn't watch this video because I know he's going to get it. He's going to call you up and he's going to say, Edgar, what are you doing on March 15th? Are you going to be, you know, can you do me a favor and do a full charge on that Kona for me because I'm coming down. You know, I just need a bed and one meal and then I'll be on my way. So, you know, I think it's, hold on one second. Hey, Kyle, I'm on the phone here with Edgar and he needs to figure out how to get his Kona from Guatemala to have the battery replaced. And I was just saying, I hope that you never hear this video because your idea would be to go down there and drive it back. You think that's a good idea? He'd love to do it. All right, we'll have to talk. That's going to be an interesting video. But let me call you back. I'm just finishing up here. I'll talk to you in a bit, okay? All right, see ya.
Yeah, actually,
you know what? That was fate that he called me right then. That's fate.
That's right. Imagine.
That's bizarre.
Well, but that being said, Rivian and Harley Davidson, both, like an expedition that they drove their vehicles from the southern tip of Argentina all the way up to Alaska.
Yeah, I did see that. Yes, that's so cool.
They were having is with the cold weather in Patagonia, like in southern South America, the range really went down to such a level that they were having problems actually covering ground.
Yeah. Well, listen, Edgar, this has been amazing, and it's great to reconnect. And I want to thank you for sharing your story and for your friendship as well. And you know, I'm super proud of what you're doing there, and I love your adventure spirit. You know, obviously you're in a position where you like a challenge. I also like how you're committed to this vehicle. It makes me, it makes me happy that you're not going to let somebody destroy. That's like a dagger to the heart. What do you mean destroy my car? Are you kidding me? So, you know, a lot of good things. Let's just say, let's put this conversation on pause. We'll end this video here and we'll pick it up. We'll see what happens. You know, maybe the easy solution is that Hyundai calls you up and says, you know what, we're now importing the hybrids and we can actually service your battery. I'd be curious to know if they would cover it as a recall in Guatemala since it's a U.S., you know, Hyundai of USA. Like, I don't know how that would work economically, but there's a lot of unknowns here, my friend. A lot of unknowns.
A recall is different than a warranty.
Yeah.
Because a recall is that they are admitting that they actually
we're at fault, right? For something.
Delivered a vehicle that had a problem.
Right.
Warranty is that I don't know. I'm not a lawyer.
I get it.
I don't know the details, but a recall is like an admission that there was an actual problem from their factory. It's what if I actually bought the car because I bought it in the U.S. and I wanted to move down south? What?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, we'll see. But listen, more to come, folks. Thank you for your time today, Edgar. This is great, and you know, it's really good to reconnect. I'm so happy we did this. And everyone, thank you for watching another episode of Out of Spec Dave. And this story is only beginning to unfold, my friends. You know, I don't know where this is going. So, all right. Well, everyone, have a good one. We'll talk to you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.